Interrompemos esse podcast para perguntar: quem você quer ser?
Designer, engenheira, pedagoga,
administrador.
Quer saber? O Senac EAD é nota máxima no MEC. Tem cursos de diversas áreas, com conteúdo elaborado por especialistas do mercado e professores mestres e doutores. Ainda tem o Senac Carreiras, conectando estudantes a vagas de emprego em todo o país. Saiba mais em ead.senac.br/graduação.
Hello, fellow gamers! Welcome to the Video Gamers Podcast. We are three dads who love gaming, and we release new episodes on Mondays and Thursdays. And on Thursdays like today, we talk about recent gaming news. Make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any episodes, and rate us 5 stars on Apple and Spotify. You can also find us on socials everywhere at Video Gamers Pod. I am your host, Paul, and joining me, he is a man with one mind and two bodies. It's Josh.
The only thing better than me is two of me, Paul.
Are we sure about this?
Oh, I'm sure.
The world's not ready for two Joshes.
Let's just find out.
All right, fair enough. And joining Josh and me, he is showing off all his classic cars to all of his employees before canning them. It's Ryan.
Come this way, minions. Look at my cars. By the way, you're fired.
I can't wait to talk about that story. It might be my favorite news story of the year so far. Oh man, Bungie, not a good look. All right, guys, let's jump into our first story here. I feel like this is probably the biggest news of the week. We saw here an announcement about how Shroud has been working in conjunction with Mountaintop Studios on making a new free-to-play 3v3 tactical shooter. So kind of think in the vein of Valorant or Counter-Strike, although it definitely has a big twist. We do not have a release date quite yet, and they are describing the game as a love letter to Counter-Strike, but keeping it fresh with new ideas. I think the real big hook here is the fact that they have two systems that they are using. One of them is called Duality, where you get to control two bodies, and there's also a system of future tech. Josh, why don't I just toss this one to you here? Why don't you talk a little bit about the Duality system and how that's like a new take on tactical shooters?
Yeah, I mean, how many shooters do we see where people are coming out and they're like, hey, we're making this new shooter. It's going to be great. We've got guns, and you shoot people and you're like, cool, I've seen this, a million times already. So it kind of takes something special to like really get my attention and for me to go like, whoa, wait a minute. And dude, I found this game called Spectre Divide, or this trailer on it. I start watching it and I was like, wait a minute, what the heck is this, dude? Like, this actually looks like it could be pretty good. So the big hook on this game is that you get two copies of yourself. So you have the character you're running around with, but then you can throw out like this little puck, they call it. And then that will make a clone of yourself that you can then switch to and start controlling like right away. And then I'm assuming, because I haven't played it, but I'm assuming you can then decide to like warp back into your other body and control that guy. So
yes,
you can think
with no cooldown.
Right.
You can go back and forth as much as you want.
Right. And so it's like, hey, I'm going to run around this corner. I'm going to stop behind this cover, and then I'm going to throw my puck across the way while the guy's looking at where I just went. I'm now controlling the other version of myself that's, off to the side, and I'm going to pop this guy that's, looking at me to pop out of the other box. Or I'm going to throw a version of myself behind this guy, wait for him to, he's going to shoot the copy of me, and then I'll just shoot him from behind kind of stuff. Like, this is kind of mind-blowing stuff in regards to how do you add like a tactical nature to a 3v3 shooter. The very first thing I thought of was Splitgate. Like when this,
100%.
When they kind of showed this off, I went, well, this is like Splitgate's like angle. That game has portals. This game, you have copies of yourself. So I thought it looked super neat. This whole duality system, they were saying, like even Shroud was saying, like he had a group of him and his buddies taking on some of the developers. And he said, dude, the stuff the developers came up with on how to use this was pretty mind-blowing to me. He was like, they were wrecking us at first with just how they were using these clones of themselves.
I just want to address something real quick, Paul, that you said. Did they actually say a love letter?
They sure did.
Because I'm getting a little bit of Battlefield PTSD
Oh no!
When I hear
Love letter to
love letter,
gamers?
I don't think this will be it, but I just wanted to address that because when I hear love letter, it triggers something in my brain about that.
Love letter means kick in the nuts, right? In the gaming
Right?
industry.
If you're DICE, yes, and EA, it is, yes. Yeah, so the duality system, I couldn't help but think, is this better than having a portal gun in Splitgate? And I don't think it's necessarily better, but it's definitely different. Like, I think what bothers me with the duality system is getting killed by guys and I don't know where they are. I don't like the idea of, I see you, you're down this corridor, but because you chucked a puck over there, now you have the ability to flank me. And what happens is you essentially have two lives because you have both of your bodies. So just because one body is dead doesn't mean you're eliminated. Your body now goes back to, or your mind goes back to the other body and you keep playing. So even though it's 3v3, everyone has two lives. Now, I do like the idea of being strategic where maybe I will like sacrifice a life here to figure out where you are. And maybe there are cases when you can do stuff like that. I think that stuff is pretty neat in theory, but it sounds to me like it's a lot of people just not knowing where anyone is. And that sounds a little frustrating to me when you're trying to be more tactical. But on the other hand, you also have all this like tech. So like Ryan, do you want to maybe explain a couple things that we saw here tech wise?
Yeah, so definitely, I would say instead of Counter-Strike, it's probably more tech-wise like Valorant. You have the different shields you can bust out in front of you to kind of overtake areas. You have this kind of weird black void that you can throw up that some of them I think they can shoot through, but they can't see through it. So you can kind of move into that area. Then when they run through, then you're right there and you can take them out. So yeah, a lot of cool tech. It's definitely, like I said, something a little more akin to Valorant than like Counter-Strike.
What's weird too is when you leave your body also serves as like a sensor. So if anyone walks near it or if your other body hears things, it'll give you a warning. And then sometimes that'll tell you like, oh, switch back to your other body because maybe it's, in danger or something like that. I can definitely see where if you are communicating with your team, you can get very clever and creative in how you use all of this. But it is also a little weird thinking that at all times there's just like 3 bodies just slumped over, standing there doing nothing.
Yeah, I was gonna.
It's a little weird.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. So it for sure. Like when you switch back and forth, the character just stands there. Does he just stand?
Oh,
yeah, he's just chilling.
You can go kill him.
That's wild. That does seem
It's
weird.
a little strange. Yeah,
I think Paul, you kind of brought up the point with like you don't like getting killed from somewhere where you didn't know where you got killed from. But you got to remember this is 3v3, which is a very small. Like, what game is 3v3?
Like this, nothing. Everything's 4v4 or 5v5.
Right, exactly. And so in this case with the 3v3, but the option to have your clone out there, it is in theory a 6v6, but only 3 characters are getting controlled at any given time. So I feel like with that smaller team size, you wouldn't necessarily get like overwhelmed by like just people running around everywhere. And they were very clear to say in this kind of gameplay demo trailer that they showed off that this is meant to be tactical, not Twitch based. So, they were saying the whole like throwing out a clone and this teleporter is not meant to be where I throw it up in the air, I teleport right away, I 360 no scope you from up in the air, and all that happens within like a half a second. Like they really said like you have to think about how you position these, how you move into them. It does serve as like a second life, which I thought was really cool. I kind of dig the mix of like this kind of catch with this clone duality system, but then having like the technology stuff to go along with it. Whereas like Valorant a lot of times is like, it almost feels like magical with the orbs and the smoke clouds and the poisons and all that.
You're throwing
like,
fire. You're like a fire mage.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
this one seems like it's like deployable tech. Like, you can get a radar ping, which will ping enemies through a wall. Ryan mentioned like the black void shield that you can throw out in front of you and then move behind and stuff like that. So I just, we're getting older. Our reflexes are not what they used to be, but I like the idea of being able to be tactical and outsmart an opponent versus like, oh, I couldn't click that pixel as fast as they clicked my pixel. Like this is one reason we don't necessarily like Valorant. This one's interesting because like in my brain, I want to think like, oh, I'll totally be good at this, but then it's like, I also worry is this going to just be a crazy sweat fest, just like Valorant is, or Counter-Strike is, where it's like, dude, I just can't hang anymore.
Of course it will, which is not my kind of game. So I already know I'm not going to like this. I think it's going to have a small niche that love it. I don't think this is like a Counter-Strike killer. I don't think it'll be as big as Valorant. I think it's going to be kind of like Splitgate. It'll have like its fans. It'll be on the smaller side. I just can't help but think that's probably what's in store for it. Oh, and by the way, we should mention two last things. The animation style is sort of like Borderlands. It's almost more cell shaded, which has been pretty divisive. Some people love it, some hate it. And all weapons have ADS. So you don't have to do that goofy thing like in Counter-Strike where you have to stop moving in order to get those headshots.
Yeah.
You can do full ADS and you can keep moving and sidestepping while shooting.
Which I love because I'm terrible at stopping movement to like get the reticle down and then get an accurate shot. So like this seems right up my alley. I'm going to disagree with you a little bit, Paul. I think this game has the bones and the potential to be very popular.
I smell a bet coming.
Yeah, with the tactical system, with the hey, give characters abilities or tech or whatever it is. I like the small party size, the 3 of us. We don't have to have a team of 6. We don't have to be like, who's this scrub that joined us and is ruining our match because he's terrible. Like I kind of dig all that, man. So I see this kind of really appealing to a lot of people. The one thing would be matchmaking. And again, is it an absolute sweat fest or can you just go in, have fun, be tactical, get some kills and have a good time? Like there's a fine line there, but I could see this really being popular.
Well,
all right. Well,
I think the tactical side of it is what's pretty cool, especially if it picks up with, streamers to where seeing what kind of different tactics everyone uses and comes up with, kind of takes off and maybe something that will help it. But it's definitely something different.
I think Shroud's name will take it only so far.
Yeah.
And then I think that'll kind of be its stopping point, but maybe I'm wrong. All right, before we hit our next story, we do want to let you guys know that if you enjoy what we do and you want to help support the show, we do rely on our listeners to keep our show running. You can sign up on Patreon to get bonus episodes, shout out on the show, all kinds of cool perks. You can sign up at multiplayersquad.com. All right, for our next story, guys, Teenage Paul is unfortunately crying a little bit in the corner. This is a little bit more of a sad story. Game Informer has officially been shut down by GameStop. They were around for 33 years. Oof. I assume Game Informer, we all have positive memories getting the magazine and reading it. And I know over time they went like digital and stuff like that. The 13 people that were on staff were completely blindsided. No one seemed to know that this was coming. This is a little bit of a sad day. I mean, I don't know that we necessarily still needed Game Informer, but it was still like a heavy part of my teenage years. I felt like we at least needed to mention it on the show.
Yeah, I'm sure every 90s kid listening went to GameStop, bought games. They said, "Oh, if you sign up for our membership, you'll get free Game Informer for a year." And then that's everybody has a stack of Game Informers. I remember because those were the days of looking at the game manuals and reading through strategy guides and all of that stuff. And it was just so cool looking through the pictures and reading about games that you haven't played or you probably will never play, but you had it right there and you're killing time. So yeah, it's sad, man. It's definitely gone part of the childhood.
Dude, after 33 years, you know what I mean? Like you're just cruising along. You're like, dude, we've got this mass history to this company. I mean, we've been, making gamers happy forever. And then to just have the parent company come along and it happened quick, dude.
Yeah.
Like it got announced and then like 2 days later, their Twitter account is just gone. Like they've got
links to every article is gone.
Yeah.
Everything's been nuked. You can't even see it anymore.
This was not like a, hey, this is shutting down kind of thing. This was like, by the way, Game Informer's done. And a few days later, like everything is just wiped out, man. Like that's tough, man. I mean, I get it in the one hand, like people don't really get magazines and stuff anymore. We live in the digital age, like that kind of thing. But like, I'll be honest, Game Informer's website was pretty good, man. Like we would go there for a lot of news and to watch trailers and stuff like that. So it's just, I don't know. It's tough. It's kind of like the changing of an era. I feel really bad for the people that were working there. I mean, we talked about dream jobs in our Squadcast that will come out tomorrow. But it's like, I mean, how many people say, hey man, my dream job would be to work, for a gaming website or a game company or something like that. And it's like, that's over for 13 people now.
Yeah.
I just feel so bad for all the writers whose articles aren't even up there anymore. So it's like they wrote these things, published it, and now it's just gone. You can't even see them.
Well, in one of them too, with like X, they went on and posted like an actual farewell, and then that's when they nuked it. They pulled it down and then they deleted their the Game Informer, whatever
social media account.
Yeah, the social media account. Yeah, they're just like,
just
no, boop, just pulled it. So yeah, it seems crazy how they did it, but yeah,
they will be missed, but not forgotten. All right, well, let's go ahead and take a short break, and then we'll come right back and talk about my favorite news story of the week.
Aqui é o Tigre Tony, de Sucrilhos. Cheguei aqui no meio do seu podcast para te falar que existem coisas mais importantes que ganhar ou perder. Dar o seu melhor. E assim você mexe nos seus placares pessoais, que são diferentes daqueles que marcam se seu time ganhou ou perdeu. Os seus placares marcam cada objetivo que você superou. Conte com a energia de Sucrilhos para bater todas as suas metas. E mostre sua garra. Sucrilhos, desperte o tigre em você.
All right, guys, it's time to talk about Bungie. I'm excited about this one. It is also a sad story. So, there are serious elements here, but my goodness, what a crazy story to talk about. So, as our listeners probably know, or maybe at least remember us talking about a little bit, Bungie was acquired by Sony 2.5 years ago. They were acquired for $3.6 billion. And if you remember, Josh, we talked about how $1.2 billion of it was set to go to developers with deferred payments over time. And this is what they did to try to keep the devs from quitting. Well, this week, Bungie announced that they are laying off 220 employees, which is 17% of their workforce. Like, this is a serious layoff. There's a lot here that we can cover. But first of all, over 100 of those employees have been absorbed into Sony Interactive Entertainment. So at least not all of them lost jobs entirely. Bungie is now going to focus entirely on Destiny and Marathon. Do we want to kind of like stop and talk about that for a little bit, or should we go straight into the crazy side of things?
I mean, Marathon, we have not seen very much of since we got the cool looking reveal trailer for that game. Destiny, I mean, has been around forever. I'm not a Destiny player, Ryan. I know you were massively into Destiny, but it's like, I know this last expansion, the Final Shape, it was like supposed to be the end of Destiny, right? The last expansion for Destiny 2. Is that right, Ryan?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what they were supposed to finish it off with the Final Shape, which performed well too. I forget what its rating, but it performed well.
I was going to say, I feel like people that were still into Destiny 2 really enjoyed Final Shape, and I think it's still going because I saw some recent like Gambit video and stuff like that too. So, but it's like, if your cash cow is a game that's been going on for, I don't know, how old is Destiny 2? 8 years? 10 years?
I don't think it's that
no,
old.
Destiny 1 came out in, I
6
think,
years?
14, and then Destiny 2, I think, was 2017-ish.
Okay, so, I mean,
Maybe 7-ish years, yeah.
It's interesting because it's like, how long can you keep this alive and ticking and making you billions of dollars a year? And I think the answer is you can't, because look what just happened, right? Like,
yeah, well, you could tell. I mean, as a player, you could feel it and you could see it happening in real time too. Because another thing with Bungie is they had all these other little side projects they were doing, so they lost a lot of talent on the dev team for Destiny, and we could tell, and that's why I stopped playing. I mean, I had thousands of hours in that, and I'm like, this is garbage now. It's all just a bunch of little microtransactions and all this other stuff to it, and the story and the gameplay, everything just kind of was not at that top tier level that made the game so great. And then look what happens.
Yeah. Well, the side of the story that really gets wild, which was alluded to in our intro, is that the CEO of Bungie, his name is Pete Parsons, obviously a super wealthy dude. I mean, he had been around Bungie for about 20 years. For a short while, he left and then came back. But what's so crazy is that he loves buying classic cars, and he has public online profiles where you can see what classic cars he has won at auction. And so you can go online and you can see that he has spent $2.4 million on cars just in the last couple of years. Now, keep in mind that Bungie had other layoffs just last October, and he continued buying more cars at auction after that. I mean, we've talked a lot about corporate greed and how these CEOs make so much more money than your average developer. I am morally opposed to running businesses that way. My wife and I run a foster care and adoption business. Our employees get paid almost the exact same as we do. That's kind of how I just believe in running things. But what's so wild is that Pete Parsons invited employees over to his house to come see these cars 2 days before laying off 220 people. Like, how out of touch do you have to be to pull off something like that? That's insane.
Very out of touch, man. I don't even know how to like excuse that. You know what I mean? Like, hey guys, come look at how rich I am.
In your head?
Yeah, come look at how rich I am. Cool, look at all this cool stuff that I can afford thanks to all your hard work. You know, and then it's like 2 days later, he knew. Like, that's the thing. You don't just find out like one day and it's like, hey, you got to fire 220 people tomorrow, by the way. And it's like, oh, okay. You're the CEO, man. You know what's coming down the pipeline. You know, and so to invite these people over and be like, look at my wealth, look at my cool cars. Like, you guys want to take a ride in one? Oh, by the way, have a good weekend. I'll talk to you on Monday when I can, everybody. Like, just the disconnect there is unreal. We have said this time and time again. Corporate greed is the worst thing that has happened to gaming in the history of gaming. You know, microtransactions, the focus on monetization. We talk about this with beloved franchises, Destiny 2. You know, Paul and I were huge Hearthstone and Overwatch fans with Blizzard. Ryan, you're playing Diablo right now, you know, Blizzard game. And it's like, thankfully they didn't monetize the heck out of Diablo 2 because that's what you're playing. Yep. You know what I mean? But look at Diablo 4, completely different like mindset when it comes to that game. Are you cracking out on Diablo 4 right now?
Nope.
No. You know why? Because it's like, it's been monetized and it's all about the expansions and the season passes and all that stuff. And it's like, this is the bane of gaming at this point. And this is a classic example of, here's a company that had a passion for a game, put their hearts and souls into it, and then they just started caring about how much money this game was making. And gamers are not stupid. We can tell when these things happen. You know what I mean? And no matter how much you love a game, ultimately that will drive gamers away from a game when the passion is not there and it's just a money machine at that point.
Yeah. I mean, you can tell with every industry once it gets to that level, like you said, there's a disconnect where that's why I think indie games are doing so well recently, because you can feel the passion, you can feel the love that they have when they made this game. They crafted it long, late night hours, and I'm sure the people, you know, the underlings are working hard on these games, but the senior staff and stuff that controls everything, they call the shots, and there's only so much these people can do, and we can tell. So it's just, that corporate greed had happened to my wife. She didn't get a raise a couple years in a row, and then the CEO gets some bonus of like $4 million, you know, and I'm just like, what the heck, man? What is going on? There's such a difference between the two. It's wild, man, and it just sucks that it's crept into the gaming realm now as well.
Yeah, it's so rare to see. And I don't even want to call it generosity to like share those profits a little more, you know, evenly with your employees. But like, just think about employee morale at Bungie right now.
Oh,
like it is not it's not fun going into the office right now, getting to see all of these classic cars being bought while people are being laid off. And it's also hurt Pete Parsons. Everyone's been calling for his dismissal. And we know when they first got acquired by Sony had provisions in there to allow Bungie to just operate as they saw fit. So even though they were under the Sony umbrella, they just got to do whatever they wanted unless they missed certain performance measures. And we don't have a lot of answers here. I feel like this just asks a lot of questions. Like, what happens to the laid off employees with that 1.2 billion set for deferred payments over time? Like, do they still get that? Do they not? I don't know. But we do know that Sony, to some extent, is exerting more power over Bungie, because there was a tweet sent out by Jeff Grubb of Giant Bomb, and he said that Herman Holst, who is the CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment's Studio Business Group, is now running Bungie himself. So we don't know what this means really moving forward. Is this going to change their creative process? What is it going to look like? What's going to get restructured? But Bungie is, just another one of these developers that for a long time was kind of, unimpeachable. And just over time, you get to see just another studio kind of fall by the wayside.
Yeah. I mean, dude, Bungie, the Halo days,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the days of Halo, this was Bungie, man. Like, come on, And then now it's just like all you hear about is Destiny 2 and how bad these expansions were and money, and it's like, I don't want to just stand on a soapbox, but it's not all about the money, man. Yeah. And it will always come back to bite you when you make it all about the money.
Well, and one of the worst parts too is it's like, these are other people's lives. That's how they provide for their family and how they take care, they pay their bills is this job. It's not just a name on a paper, and they just don't care. They're like he said, I mean, other than just being a jerk, there's years of lack of foresight and proper planning to have a productive, dev team and studio ideas and whatever, what have not. But it's just all these people now are out, and it's good luck. Have fun. I'm going to go, hang out with all my millions of dollars of cars.
Yep. All right. Well, let's go ahead and move into our last story of the week. So last week we talked about how there had been no delays for a really long time, and then Stalker 2 got delayed to next year. Well, we have another major game title being pushed back. This time it is Avowed. No! It never had. I know.
What?
We're sad.
No, I'm relieved. I'm so relieved.
You're relieved?
Yes.
Well, They have pushed it back. There was never a release date this year, but it was supposed to come out late 2024. Now we do have a release date. They're saying it's going to be February 18th, 2025. Obsidian says that pushing it back has nothing to do with game development, nothing to do with removing bugs or polishing. It is just simply to, quote, give some breathing room because there are so many good games releasing here at the end of 2024. And also for Game Pass users, this will also separate it a little bit from Call of Duty Black Ops 6, because obviously that'll, be a huge release for Microsoft. So yeah, we're going to have to wait a little bit longer for Avowed.
All right. I got a question for you guys. We just saw this with Stalker 2, and they said, we just don't want to go up against Space Marine 2 and
Astrobot, Black Myth Wukong,
yeah, exactly.
Star Wars Outlaws.
Yeah, I mean, and so, for the first time, and I can remember how long, a developer was actually honest and just said, dude, we don't want to release our game.
Well, it's like Prince of Persia, remember? Where they're like, everyone's playing Shadow of the Erdtree, so we're going to push it back.
And I got to say, I love the just being upfront. It used to be, hey, we're going to delay our game. We're going to work on it. It's not quite ready yet. And then everybody's like, it's not because of that game that's coming out. Oh, no. It's not because of that game. We're fully confident in our game, and that's like, okay. So like the honesty is a breath of fresh air, but it's like, we don't know what's going to come out in February at this point. Like games are just coming out like crazy, man. Like, and we just joked about Stalker 2. There's nothing in October, people. Release it in October. Yeah. If the game is ready, like put it in a month where there's nothing else. Like I just don't. It just makes I get it. It makes sense. Honestly, it's refreshing for developers to say, hey, listen, there's no sense in 3 major titles all coming out within 2 weeks of each other. This isn't good for gamers. It's not good for the companies. Like I agree with that. But just like look at the 1 month where there's nothing coming out and then just go, hey, what if we put our game out in that month and then we'll be the number one game and then everybody will get a chance to play us and everybody will be happy. You delay it to February. We don't know what's coming out in February, man.
Well, same with October. It could be Dragon Age. We don't have a release date. It could be Indiana Jones. It could be Arc 2.
October's
it could be
a lot
Silksong.
sooner than February, though.
That is true.
Do you think that there's something else, going on there is why they pushed it out that far?
I don't think so. To be honest, I feel like they would have said, hey, we want to bring you the best game experience possible. And so we're going to work on polishing it and stuff like that. I mean, I'm very excited for Avowed, and I'm very happy that Paul now does not have this for his, top games of 2024 options.
He's lost his whole list.
Dude, my list has been obliterated, dude. I looked at our auction draft because for listeners who don't know, we all had a fictional $200 and we did an auction draft of most anticipated this year. I had drafted 2 of my top 3 that I paid out for have been delayed to next year. I had Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater, which is now pushed back, and Avowed. At least I had Shadow of the Erdtree, but I mean, really good. I spent a combined $70 on Metal Gear Solid and Avowed, so that's like a third of my budget is just gone.
Yeah,
I looked at your guys' list too. So Ryan, you lost Stalker 2, which you had bought for $12. Everything else you have
that's still
seems
coming
good.
out this year. Stalker 2 is still coming out. It's November.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, right. So it got delayed, but not until next year. Ryan also props on drafting Dragon Age when it had a different name and no release date, and now it is coming out this year.
That's what we do here, buddy. All right.
No risk it, no biscuit, right?
I told you.
Yeah.
Oh man, Josh has not lost anything yet, but I will say
your list
with
sucks.
Dragon's Dogma 2 was a loss.
I liked Dragon's Dogma 2. That was a good game. But with each passing day, Silksong seems like less.
Oh, you talked about it.
Happening.
That's another year. That's another year.
I could also see Indiana Jones getting pushed back for sure. I might have more that get pushed also, because I also drafted Arc 2, Kingmakers, and Where Winds Meet, and those don't have release dates. So like even all 3 of those might get pushed back.
Dude, if you lose your whole list.
I got so crushed in that draft, and I felt really good right after it. It's pretty wild. Well, yeah. Any other thoughts on Avowed? Are you guys wavering at all in your confidence in it? I still think it'll be fantastic.
I think it's going to be great, honestly. And it gives them a little bit more time to build up hype too. We're going to get another gameplay trailer, another developer breakdown or something along the way, and just to keep interest going. So that's always nice.
Maybe the thought process is all those people are going to get new consoles at Christmas, and then they'll play a couple of the old games, and by February they'll be ready for the new hotness of Avowed. Maybe that's what maybe that's the 3D chess.
I mean, I will say I like knowing that come 2025, like we're going to have a really hyped game early in the year to jump into as well. I mean, there's a trade-off, but I will say developers, just be honest while you're delaying your game. Just say, I don't want to go up against this game. Like, that works. Like, we're gamers. We understand, man.
Cowards. Oh, we're scared. I don't want to go against them. Believe in yourself. Believe.
Oh man. All right. Well, I think that wraps up everything here for this week in gaming. Make sure to go check out Patreon support options to help us out and keep us staying afloat. You can do that at multiplayersquad.com, and make sure to rate our show 5 stars and join our free Discord. Come follow us on socials at Video Gamers Pod. We will have our Squadcast for those that support the show releasing tomorrow, and then we'll be back on Monday for a bonus round. So until next time, happy gaming.
All right, gentlemen, I'm going to take my helicopter now. Bye.
All right, see you, everybody.